Hey, hello there. Most of you probably know the tech lead, great guy, maximum respect to the tech lead. I'm not the tech lead, but I am the senior dev. And today I would like to talk about something that I see a lot in Quora or in Medium or on many blogs. It's what makes a senior developer. What sets aside seniors from juniors? And the easy answer is time. It's usually 5 years. The industry as a whole, usually after 5 years, they tell you, okay, now you can be called a senior, right? And that's okay to a certain extent because I mean, first of all, it proves that you didn't quit, that you didn't burn out and just leave the industry, right? Which is, actually, it's an accomplishment because the burnout rates are very high in this industry. Many people get frustrated and they just quit after a couple of years. So after 5 years, it has some value, but of course, that's not very accurate because if during those 5 years you have been working on very similar applications, right, developing similar systems, and you are basically just repeating the same year 5 times, so you don't really have 5 years of software development, right? So there is much more to it. I mean, uh, what what seniors do, they do many things. For instance, they properly split the code into methods, into classes, properly organized in packages, in deployable units. Um, of course, they pay attention to naming, unit testing. Unit testing not only to check for correctness, but also as a way to document your code, to make it easier to understand. They also don't add unnecessary complexity. Of course, if your domain is complex, uh, yeah, you try to tackle it, and you need to add complexity, right? But sometimes the domain is actually quite simple, and people added unnecessary complexity, with a lot of abstractions and yeah, stuff that doesn't really helps tackling the issue. So, of course, there is also the use of proper interfaces and encapsulation. So there are many things, but today I would like to show you a very basic example of an attitude of a senior developer. Because to me, it all boils down to the fact that a good developer or a senior developer is someone who cares. She or he really don't just do the bare minimum, okay, done, check mark. No, always looking for something to improve, to make their code more understandable, better performant, so it's that it's not just, oh, it works for the happy path, right? That's an example of someone who doesn't care. Anyway, one more thing. Since I'm here in Valencia, in my neighborhood, what you see behind me, yeah, there, that's the dome of a church from the 18th century. And what is special about that church is that the whole church is under the dome. Usually, Catholic churches, they have this kind of cross shape. Not this one. The whole church, you see, it's under the dome. The dome actually is quite big. I think it's around 25 meters of diameter, and yeah, it's one of the biggest domes in Europe. Of course, I mean the one in Rome is much bigger, but I would say it's among top 10, top 5 domes in Europe. And so the church is from 1777, and then there is a school attached to it. I used to study there, and what it's interesting about the school is that it's even older than the church. It's from 1738, and of course there are much older schools in Europe and in the world, but this one has been running all those years in the same building. So many schools, they just moved to a newer building. No, this one for 281 years it has been, giving lessons to students in that building. So anyway, interesting fact that I wanted to share with you. And as Linus Torvald says, talk is cheap, show me the code. So no more about history, no more about me, and I'm gonna just show you the code. So we have said that a senior developer is someone who cares, but who cares about what? Let me give you an example. I have my typical Pollo class, a bean, and basically it represents a money transfer. So I would like to create to override equals and hashcode methods. So I know I could use Lombok library or use Kotlin language, and I wouldn't need to have those methods in my source code, but that comes with its own trade-offs and issues, and I will talk about that probably in a different video. But let's say that I want to generate those methods, right? So this objects are properly handled by collections and so on. So Eclipse can do that for me. I just go right click, source, generate hashcode and equals. So that's it, generate, and here they are, right? These two methods, hashcode and equals, right? So save it, and oh, look what happened, right? This is the output of SonarLint. SonarLint is a static code analyzer. So it analyzes the code and flags pieces of code which could lead to bugs and some other issues. So I highly recommend it. I mean, the server version, Sonar Cloud or Sonar Cube, it's a must whenever you are working in a team of developers and there are several members of the team pushing code to the same repository. This is very important to have it integrated with the continuous integration process. So if the code doesn't meet the required quality, then it should not be merged. It should not even let you create a pull request. But I didn't set up the server, right, because this is a pet project. But for sure, I totally recommend to install the plugin for Eclipse or for IntelliJ, whatever is your favorite IDE. And here we have two issues, right? I mean, you may be surprised, right? I mean, someone who doesn't care would say, what is this? I mean, come on, this is equals and hashcode. I'm sure they are fine, whatever. They could like right click, and just deactivate the rule. But a senior developer would like really care about this, right? So for instance, here it is. Refactor this method to reduce its cognitive complexity, right? So basically what it's telling us is that this method, right, it's too complicated, right? It's too long. You see a lot of if, else. I mean, we know that it's the typical equals method, but still, I mean, yeah, it's not nice to leave it like that. So what can we do about it? What we can do is to split this long method into two smaller methods. So I would create another method here, right? And it's gonna be private because it's gonna be called only by let's call it outer equals method. So so another thing is like, how should I call it? I may think, oh, I will just call it equals 2. but that's not the best name, right? I mean, maybe it's better if I call it like inner equals, right? Since we cannot say that the regular equals method which we are overriding is the outer one, this is the inner one, right? And here we're gonna pass, transfer entity object, which is gonna be called other, right? And yeah, let's say return true. So, and it returns a boolean, right? So what I can do now is like take approximately half of this method, let's say, yeah, this part, right? And copy it here, right? Yeah, let's make it a little nicer. And here we are calling the inner equals method, right? So inner equals, and we need to pass other as the parameter. So yeah, you see, the warning has just disappeared. You know, this is very simple, nothing complicated, right? But it's definitely much better than just, you know, not acknowledging the issue. So, but we still have one issue. Here we have it, right? Here it's a lower severity, it's green. Replace this if then else statement by a single return statement. And actually, it makes sense. If you think about it, what are we doing here? We are just comparing two long values, right? And if they are not equal, we return false. So it means if they are equal, we return true. So yeah, basically what we are doing is just compare them, right? So we could, it's much easier to refactor these lines of code this way. Right? This is exactly the same logic, but expressed better. So yeah, sometimes, you know, even the code which has been auto-generated by the IDE, it can be improved, and we have seen it here, right? So, and actually, there is still something more that we could do here, and it's like, I mean, if you think about it, you know, we are comparing different fields of these objects, but not in the right order, right? Because you see, the ID is the one which is more likely to be different, right? I mean, the ID, we expect it to be different, and just in very few cases, we will have two objects with the same ID. So actually, we could put this field before anyone else, right? So here, before any other, it should be the first field that we compare, right? Yeah, and then it's much better, right? Because the performance will be better. I know it's just a little thing, you know, but these little things really give us the hints that the person who wrote this really cared, and most probably was a senior developer. Okay, so we have here clear our list of issues, no problems with SonarLint, and that's all. That's everything that I wanted to share with you today. I hope you like it, and bye bye.